You're listening to the Talking Headways Podcast Network.
Talking Mondays. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. Talking Mondays. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. Talking Mondays. Keep moving on.
Happy Monday. This is Mondays at the Red Wire, sponsored by our super generous Patreon supporters. I'm Jeff Wood, your host, and joined by
Tracy McMillan with Nelson Nygaard, back again.
And Chrissy Mancini Nichols.
Oh my gosh.
We're back.
Welcome back. Just before we started, I was telling Chrissy and Tracy that we had, we did the show during the pandemic when everything was shut down because we were like, well, what else are we going to do? And then it kind of like fizzled out after a while. But that was 6 years ago. So we're back 6 years later chatting about cities, and everything is still messed up.
Messed up in a different way.
In a different way, right? We're not all hiding in our houses, of course, but it's differently messed up. But how have you all been? I'm going to start with Tracy, and then I'm going to go with Chrissy. But Tracy, I heard you're moving to Austin?
Or
you're in Austin?
Back. Nope, I'm not there yet. I'm moving back to Austin. Almost 20, it'll be 19 years since we moved away from Austin.
Oh my gosh.
As you remember, Jeff, since
yeah,
that's where we met.
Yep.
Nelson Nygaard has an office in Austin, and so I've been working with that team for quite some time, though remotely, because I'm still in Arizona remote, and looking forward to going back to the office. And since I'm working so closely with a lot of people from that team, I decided I'd go back to the office there, and rather than going back to the office in the Bay Area, the Oakland office. So I love that team. I love all of our folks, but
yeah, how are you feeling about going back to Austin? Like obviously it was 19 years ago, so it's a little bit different, I'm sure.
It's very different. Yeah, we're feeling good. It's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to relearning Austin and the region. We had a call this afternoon with a regional agency, and I said that I was coming back, and I said it's just going to take me a little bit to kind of learn everybody, learn everything again. So, but it's good. Like you said, so much change. It's still, back in 2004, 5, 6, when I was there, we were still talking about it. We were talking about it being a mega region. It's still, it's a mega region, and there's a lot of opportunity. I was back a couple of weeks ago. UT Community Regional Planning Program had a career day, so I spoke on the panel for that, and
nice.
Saw some familiar faces, so that was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. And then Chrissy, I feel like we have so much to talk about because the Bay Area and San Francisco and all that stuff, but
yeah, we've been texting about some. Yeah.
How are you doing?
It's like traveling a lot. One of the cool things I saw like 2 weeks ago was I was up in the Seattle region. I'm working with Redmond on their curb management plan, and as I was going across the bridge, I saw the new Sound Transit was testing the new 2-line. So I was like, oh my God, I've been doing so much work up there, and taking like the bus to the rail, and so finally I'll have a 1-seat ride to the airport. I'm excited about that. I'm going to be there next week, so it'll be open next week.
It's open on the 31st, right? Or is it the 28th?
I thought the 28th. Yeah.
Okay, the 28th,
yeah. So
right.
I'll be there. We're doing a site visit. We have the Stage 2 SMART grant for USDOT for it's Seattle and Minneapolis, a joint project. So we're going there to see all the cool stuff Seattle's been working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heading to Fresno later this week.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. Working on a transit plan there, and then we have a mobility hub project going to the board. So the Fresno Council of Governments board, not the City of Fresno board. Yeah. So just, traversing my way across
the West Coast,
wherever it takes me. Well, East Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah.
Coast.
Anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. There's a lot going on right now. I think it's fun.
That's awesome.
It's funny because Jeff, you referenced, the pandemic, and probably back in 2020, we all didn't know what was going to happen. And certainly I think, our firm, Chrissy, maybe yours as well, like we're like, what? We don't know what's going to happen with the work and what cities will do. And I feel like we never saw, the pace never changed.
No. I think it got
So
like
it's been-
more and more coming at us.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And like people,
Ripples.
yeah, and like people want us back in person now. So that, I mean, and have
Mhm.
been, but it's even like for little things. Like, can you come to this 1 hour meeting in person?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm still in this cave down here, so that's where I've been
Enjoy
hanging
it.
out. Yeah. But although I will be, Tracy, when you emailed me, I will be doing the keynote at Movability Austin in September,
Mhm.
which I'm super excited about.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
they asked me to come and talk about a little bit about value capture and some other stuff. They asked me like, well, do we do a podcast? And I was like, well, that would be fun. I might record it, but I think I'm going to take it and do it myself. And so what we ended up deciding is we'll probably still talk about value capture, but I'm kind of going back and looking at the last 13 years of the podcast and the last 20 years of the newsletter and kind of digging up. And you all are going to make fun of me for an article that we're going to talk about in a second. But, those types of things where I connect the dots on like these little tiny, like interesting things in the top corner that connect to everything else. And so, you guys have been part of this journey since the beginning. Tracy, I mean, I talked with, I talked to Lawrence Frank a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yep.
And
yeah, I saw
that was like the book that you had us read in class, like Built Environment and Public Health, right? And so like starting out there,
Yep.
and then Chrissy,
Yeah.
when I was here in the Bay Area, like, we started the Monday show together, and just, you guys have been part of this journey. And so I'm just thinking back on all these things that have happened over the last 13 years for the podcast and 20 years for the newsletter. And so I'm just like really like happy to share that with folks, and excited that you all came back to the show too, because I keep meaning to like noodle you all a little bit more, but then I'm like I get in my own brain, and then it's Monday afternoon, I'm like, well, I can't text them now because they're gonna be just like, no way, I can't read 5 articles in like an hour.
When you sent the articles, and then I noticed that Chrissy was on the email too. I was like, oh my gosh, we're both.
Yeah.
That's
I know,
great.
I
Just
know.
the way we used to be.
Yeah.
Like old times.
It's awesome.
I know. But Jeff, I'm excited to hear what you're going to talk about with value capture.
Yeah. Well, so
yeah.
I'm turning it around a little bit, I think. And it's a very rough draft, although I have charted out 50 slides already, and it's only like a 40-minute speech. So I have to cut it down, and I'm only halfway through writing it. I've only gone through 25 slides, but I did like a thing where I looked at like how much time it was taking me to read a slide. And it was like 2 minutes. So I'm like,
Oh no.
2 hours or something.
Chop it. Just chop it.
Yeah, it has to chop up. But basically, like I'm thinking about, I've been talking a lot lately with like folks thinking about a different way to look at value and cities, and like the way that we look at cities as a business. There's a way of that folks talk about it, like, let's run our governments like a business. And so the idea that like your balance sheet needs to be balanced, rather than saying like, we have all these assets, why don't we take them and use them for the public good? And so thinking about it from that perspective is kind of the direction I'm going. But there's all these books that we've read on the show, and there's all these news items that I've collected over the years that kind of like weave a story together, going way back to even like I start by talking about 1066 and the Battle of Hastings, partly because I kind of want to tell a little bit of a family story, because my dad can trace us back to the Battle of Hastings, where basically England was taken over by the Normans. But, William, when he got to England, he started this thing called the Doomsday Book, which is basically like charting the value of every property and person and sheep and everything in the whole country. And so thinking about like, what does value mean? What does wealth mean? The collection of things that are valuable and whatnot. So starting from there and then going on to discuss cities in a different way than I think, in a way that some folks have talked about it. We talk about a number of different things in that way, but just that's how I'm thinking about it anyways. And I'm really excited to kind of put it together and tell this story. So I'm not done yet, but it's like I said, I've been reading. Ever since I talked to the folks at Movability, I was like, okay, I got to start writing. It's not until September.
That's what's blowing my mind.
It's not until September, but I've been thinking about it every day.
You're excited about it.
I'm excited about it. Yeah,
That's
I'm really
great.
excited about it because most of the times, like I go someplace and they're like, hey, let's do a podcast. It's like, okay, that's cool. I'll read a book and have an interview, and that's fun. But like just going down and almost writing another book is kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's it. It reminded me, I was just in Chicago, and the value capture district I helped create for the red purple, it's already paid itself. So they're trying to disband it, which I don't even know how I feel about that, but
You're like, take it away. Well,
I know.
Chicago is famous for its TIF districts, right?
Yeah, well, this one though was the first value capture district for future TIF to pay off the bonds for transit. We had to change state law and all this other stuff, but we only got it passed because Obama was leaving office, and finally the mayor was like, "Okay, we got to do it."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we projected like 30 years, but then it's already paid itself off.
That's very
because the transit value has been so like more than we even thought.
So why are they trying to disband it?
Well, that I don't understand, because we did carve out schools. So schools, the levy to schools stayed whatever it would have been. They're just saying we don't. It's just like wrapped up in the TIF argument that we don't need TIFs, which Chicago is, like Jeff said, like TIF to death. But like, could that money go to transit? I don't know.
I mean, that'd be a logical place for like capital.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
But Chicago has a big budget deficit, and like every other city.
Yeah. That's another thing I did last week is I'll mention in my puppies and butterflies. I already wrote it down there. We'll talk about it then. But let's get into it, shall we? We have so much to talk about. I feel like we could just have this conversation for an hour and not even talk about any articles. It's super fun, but. Thanks to everybody who's ordered Buster Bike scarves. If you'd like to order one, just go to theoverheadwire.com or email me at theoverheadwire@gmail.com. Also, I love getting pictures of folks wearing their scarves at events and rallies and things. That's what they're for. This week, Catherine sent me a picture with her and a bullhorn and a bike-only scarf at a pro bike rally outside of her city hall. I love that. That's really good. And I'm going to design a new one. And I want to ask you all because I'm thinking about designing a new one. I have my bike only, I have my bus only. And I'm thinking about doing like a high-speed rail, but like, should I do like a curb management scarf or like?
Oh yes, that's
like Tracy. Are there any ideas like that you might have, or Chrissy?
Well, I have said to you, because I've lived in the Southwest for several years, that you can do the whole line over again, but doing them as cooling towels.
Cooling towels. That's right. You did mention that. I should do that.
Yes,
I
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Let's do curb management. It's like
what would that design look like? What would that design look like? Is it is it a street? Is it like a street with like different zones?
We just create these really cool graphics for curb management, like for stickers. So it's just like don't take my
Oh, I'm not gonna
keep your hands off my curb.
Don't
I meant no. You can take it. No, I mean like keep your hands off my curb.
I thought you were like, don't take my intellectual property.
Oh yeah, no, it's not intellectual property. Yeah, it's just like all these cool things. Like the curb is supposed to be, and I'll send them to you.
Okay, yeah, I want to see those.
You can use them.
See those.
Yeah.
The other thing was like a high-speed rail kind of thing. I have a scarf from the Portland Timbers that's like a picture of the train going over the steel bridge, which is kind of cool. So I thought, something along those lines. But it needs to be like train focused. We did bikes, we did buses. It's probably trains or streets in some form or fashion. So that's the idea I'm having, is trying to think about how to do that.
Can you put the pedestrian in there though?
Yeah, and I have pedestrians on the bike scarf, but I could also do a pedestrian, like maybe do walking one or something along those lines too. That would probably be good. And as always, as we note, thanks everybody for supporting us on patreon.com/theoverheadwire, or buying books off the bookshop site. You can find all the books of the authors that almost all the books of the authors that we've interviewed on the show, bookshop.org/shops/theoverheadwire. And also you can get our Cars or Cholesterol merch at bit.ly/carsorcholesterol. This is episode 188. We're in session. And before we get to the show, I want to let folks know that they can get this podcast or Talking Headways wherever you find your podcasts: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Overcast, Podcast, and of course, Apple Podcasts. So that gets us to the news. Here are a few stories that piqued our interest from the newsletter over the last few weeks. I had to cut it down. Usually I've been going and doing like 25 stories or something ridiculous on the Monday show. But since both of you all are here, I know, yeah, you're like overwhelmed. That would be overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, that can be your Han Solo show.
Yeah, exactly. I'll keep it there. So we're going to go over a couple of them, maybe 4 or 5. We'll see how the time goes. But this first one, I've already gotten made fun of for this, but I'm going to go into the chrono urbanism. Chrono urbanism evolves. In addition to spatial layouts of cities, they also function with a temporal or time component. Since the Industrial Revolution, time has only become more important as people's schedules are synchronized by time. But as technology uncouples schedules from movement and people begin to see time as distance through the use of chronotypes, the importance of good urban places emerges. This is in Landzine. So this is quite a long item, as you all noted, and it goes through a number of ways that time and space interact. And I'm wondering if you had anything specific that stood out to you the most.
Well, I related to this article because as I was reading, I was just thinking like how you plan curb space. It just was like a blueprint, because it's like what is the time of activity and how streets are grouped together and neighborhoods are grouped together, because there's so many similarities between how things functioned. But what I think is interesting is you throw in a coffee shop, or I mentioned I'm working with Redmond. They just got a new hot chicken restaurant, and it's just like the time, how we think of typologies in terms of spatial or temporal just like goes out the window. Throw in one hot chicken place, it's like delivery and people and it just changes all the flows. And it's interesting because even probably like on our first podcast, we were talking about let's have flex zones where there's delivery in the morning and then it moves to parking, and it's like, oh, these times just magically are similar across cities and the way people operate. But that's like gone. I just recommend now just create some short-term zones. Whoever wants to use them can use them. And, delivery patterns are 24 hours a day. Passenger pickups and drop-offs, all that temporal planning in dense areas is just no longer predictable anymore. So it kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah, building on that, I thought it was interesting. The article was laid out a bit chronologically, but thinking about how we have these patterns, and in terms of like the workflow of the day, and whose lifestyle is had set that pattern. So your white collar worker had set that kind of ebb and flow of a transit system, the traffic movement throughout a day, and who is left out of that conversation of the time and space activity in an urban center, I found to be really interesting. Chrissy thinks of things in terms of the curb management, and then I often think about things from a transportation safety standpoint, and in thinking about the relationship between time and space, and opportunities for, trying to remove opportunities for conflict between movements. And so in thinking about this article, and while the idea of, a 15-minute city or the transit-oriented development, where you may be creating a greater density of opportunity within a space, we're not, it sort of relates to the other article that you had shared on safety in terms of vehicle miles traveled and how that is a factor in safety in urban cities. And so maybe we have a greater density of opportunities for conflict within a time and space, but maybe there's also, again, that awareness and spatial understanding and community understanding of the function within that space.
Tracy, you just read my as you were talking, I was thinking this relates to the article, and I was like, the density, and I couldn't wait to find out what you thought of that article, because it's like VMT is sure, but density and trucks and congestion is like safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, yeah, and I was realizing that like there's basically three articles in here that are all connected, because the one about, people being able to navigate different intersections and their
Yes,
brain
that
health,
was that was a
that comes
really
into that as
that was
well.
a really interesting article.
So we'll get to those in a second. I think that's really like that's why I'm always talking about like everything's connected, because all these things are interchanged with each other. I found it fascinating from the time perspective, because we have had all these discussions recently about time, like Carlos Moreno and the 50-minute city, and before that, I mentioned in the article like TOD, the discussion of kind of getting people close to transit so they have access to place, the chronotype thing that I know that Jarrett Walker talks about it, but other folks have mapped that out. And there's like all these mapping programs now where you can actually map the time instead of the distance, which I find fascinating. But I was looking like at the history, and I found it interesting that, humans basically, like, time became a thing in the Industrial Revolution because we had to like manage like the railroads and how they connected to each other across time zones and things like that. And I find that really fascinating that, this E.P. Thompson, they mentioned in the article, like described how industrialization replaced task-oriented labor with a regime of measured hours. Productivity was no longer defined by the completion of work, but by the duration of labor itself. And so think about like the 8-hour workday, 40-hour work week, and how like now with all the technology and stuff, and people are talking about compressing that down even further to like 30-hour weeks or 35-hour weeks, or trying to get 4-day work weeks or those types of things. And what does that mean for our transportation systems? Like we found out with the pandemic that BART actually has the same amount of riders that it did before, but they're just not riding every day. They're only riding 3 days a week because of the work from home. So the way that we've structured our cities and our transportation systems around time and around, the time of day for rush hour, for the most part, which is only like 18% of trips, right? All the other trips, it's like we've created this system that like is a slave to time, but also makes us less productive overall. Like it messes up our time schedules because we are stuck in traffic, or we are, we have to wait for the transit to get to where it's going, and it's got stuck behind a car or whatever. So all those things kind of connected for me, and like thinking about time differently. And some of the other stuff that I've read about, like Barcelona, they have like laws about time and rules about time. They have conferences about time and how to plan around it. And the super blocks are actually a time management mechanism, let people be closer to the things that they need to access, like healthcare and things like that. So all these things, we think about distance and space and urbanism and all those things, but this fifth dimension, this sixth or seventh dimension, whatever time might be, you throw that in there and it kind of like, explodes everything and makes it all weird again.
Well, and being able to have the luxury of how we manage our space and manage our time, right? And the article talks about it a little bit, where we've chosen to live this new, in this return to Austin. I have the opportunity and the luxury of being able to say, I'm going to live on the rail line. But as you know, there's just one rail line in Austin. I mean, there's bus lines, and we'll be able to access bus lines, but, or maybe it's just the way that, whether it's the luxury of that choice, or how I've chosen to make the decision in terms of where to live, that I have to be able to connect to those resources to be able to manage my time and the spaces I need to reach throughout the activities that I need to do on a daily basis.
Can you get to work on the rail line?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that works too, because our office happens to be, within a block and a half of one of the stations. If it weren't that way, then there would have been a different calculus. But that is the way that I framed my housing location decision.
Yeah. And you work during times when it's available, and
Yes.
because it's,
Yeah.
Will you also have like a nearby grocery store you can walk to? And
I
yeah.
will.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I did a bunch of developer focus groups when we were working with LA County to reform their parking and TDM rules.
Mm-hmm.
And what came up was time to work, but really it was time to a grocery store, and like people thinking about where they live and do they need a car, or like based on how long does it take for me to get to a grocery store, and can I walk there realistically with like
Mhm.
a cart or a few bags?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, do you have the luxury of choosing to where you can have access to those places or not? Because even if you're, if they were trying to build affordable housing and we were like, well, there's gonna be transit, it's like, well, there's no transit where their job is, even if they live near a transit station, or it doesn't run at midnight when they're coming home from their shift or something. So
Mhm.
just how much, you're right, like transit dictates and how we set these up and who we included or didn't include in that process of determining those rules.
Groceries are so interesting. Just from that like standpoint of, we talked about the rush hour, but also like the biggest trip for folks is usually going to get food, right? And whether that's dinner, lunch, breakfast, or grocery shopping. And you may be able to choose to live near a grocery store, but it might not be the grocery store you want to go to. Like if you need to go to like a Safeway instead of a Whole Foods, or like in Houston, we had Fiesta, which is like the only place we could find Swiss chard for ravioli at Christmas time. It was like a Hispanic themed grocery store, but we talked with Alex from El Paso on the show a number of years ago, and he was looking at data, like phone data, and like he would hear like people are close to the grocery stores, but then they didn't want to go to the grocery store that was next to them. They wanted to go like across town. So that's like a choice too, in that you're trying to like access the place that you need to, or you feel like is more connected to your needs, rather than like if it just exists. And I wonder if we make that mistake a lot, which is like, oh yeah, you live on a rail line and you're next to a grocery
Oh
store.
no,
You're set.
I
Yeah.
was like going on Google and seeing which grocery stores are nearby the high frequency transit. What kind of products do they have? Is it like a Target where it's not really a grocery store? But yeah, or I
Mhm.
remember like even personally trekking to the Thai grocery store in New York because I had to get certain ingredients, or I basically planned my life around a farmer's market. So, you know, um, yeah, I mean, that's what people are. I plan my life around a grocery store because I love going to the grocery store. But yeah.
What's your store? What's your store? What's the one you like love going to?
Well, I like Gus's.
Or maybe not love.
Gus's.
Gus's,
I mean,
okay.
I love Buy Right when I go. I love like a fun thing is just running to Buy Right. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go on this run because at the end of it, I get to go to the Buy Right. It's like, um, yeah. But really, the farmers market, and like we are so lucky to live in a place with fresh produce, so that's where I get most of my
Yeah.
groceries.
What about you, Tracy? Do you have like a grocery store like that's your go to, or you have to go there at least once every 2 weeks or something along those lines to get something specific?
Oh, Sprouts is my like regular store. I chuckled because after much research, our family has determined that the tater puffs at Whole Foods are the best. So every once in a while, yeah, I'll go by and get those. But I am looking forward to going back to Texas and having HEB in Central
Oh,
Market.
Oh,
yeah. It's like everything I read
So
about
yeah.
them is just wow.
yeah,
Like they look
yep.
so good.
I lived next to a Central Market on 38th when my last apartment there, and it was just so great. Just so I
Yeah.
just walked over there all the time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to go get
Yeah.
Yeah.
stuff.
I just get
It's amazing.
inspired to make things and try things when you walk through. I've never seen a butcher counter like as long as that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
butcher. Like it's changed. That has changed because it eliminates the need to have to go to like a big grocery store. You're like, oh, I can
yeah,
just run to the butcher, and they have
yeah,
fish. You know, like that's
yeah.
like a luxury for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing around here in the Mission. We have a fish
Mhm.
market. There's like two fish markets, actually, one kind of close to us, but then that's more expensive. But then there's another one that's like on Mission. That's like you can go and get your, when it's crab
Mhm.
season, you can
Yeah.
go and get it for like $6 a pound or whatever. And then you can get whatever fish you want. There's there's another like Mexican joint across the street that when they're closed, you can go there. The farmers market's on it's only through March through like November or March through October, but there's like a Thursday one. So yeah, there's like lots of different places, and there's like a spice market like down here too, that where you can go to Whole Foods and get like the jar of spice, whatever it, like uh, ground garlic or whatever it is, garlic powder, but you can go there and get like a 2-pound one for like the same price. So like those types of things, like just being able to access all that, like is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like just from a grocery standpoint.
And then the flip.
We don't talk about those trips enough.
No, but the flip side, and I'm going to do a focus group in a small community in Yavapai County, Arizona on Friday, where the grocery store choice is more like a Family Dollar or Dollar General. Otherwise, they're driving 20, 30 miles to get to a larger format grocery store. So the luxury of,
it's real
choice.
Yeah. Oh, we could go and talk about that for hours too.
I know.
Go back to the Robinson-Patman Act and antitrust law and whatever else caused the big box stores and the dissolving of grocery stores in local communities.
We still have a local grocery store though in the Marina Market. I mean, a banana's like $5, but it's like if you like need something, it's there.
Oh, that's what we were texting about.
I know.
In your neighborhood.
Oh, the stories about the
Marina,
the development.
Yeah.
Build
it.
Yeah. The good stories about the Safeway and the
Builder's Remedy. Love it.
What an interesting place, that Safeway, for many reasons. Shall we get to go to street safety is less driving? Street safety is less driving. A new report from Streetlight Data intimates that vehicle miles traveled and the reduction thereof is the single most important factor in determining a street's safety. City streets are safer, but now they are getting more crowded with delivery trucks and even now autonomous taxis. The best way to continue down a safer path could then be tied to a better urban planning that reduces the need to drive and all that the risks that entails. This is by Bryant Novinska-Lois and SSTI, State Smart Transportation Institute. Any thoughts on this one specifically?
Well, I was interested in Tracy's. Well, yeah, because I was thinking about like the VMT is one aspect, but density, like exactly what you were saying, Tracy. Density, congestion, big trucks. That's real. Like we worked on this e-cargo bike delivery program with Seattle. That just passed council, like the incentives to use e-cargo bike deliveries, just passed council. Catherine Rice at SSTI she's great. If you want permits, you go to Catherine. But one of the big reasons is like there's just all these big trucks double parked in intersections, and it's just if you can get an cargo bike to deliver, even if it's last mile. I mean, it's interesting because we looked at different neighborhood typologies. So in like Capitol Hill in Seattle or Chinatown, where there's a lot of density and a lot of multi-unit apartment buildings, you could use an e-cargo bike, like for pizza, because you can deliver 3 pizzas in one, ride. But once you get even to a Columbia City, where there's a lot of retail density on 1 or 2 streets, and it's getting to be more dense, but it's like still a lot of single family, those e-cargo bike trips become longer and more expensive to deliver. You can only deliver 1 pizza at a time, and then it's taking, so it's like interesting how even if you have a dense retail district and you think, oh, you can make all these deliveries from the nearby businesses, but you really can't. So how do you get rid of all the trucks in all the neighborhoods? Is because they're just causing so much havoc.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'll say this summary is, I'm sure, very simplified from what the kind of not paywalled, but give us your email. Walled street.
I tried to give them my Hotmail address and they wouldn't take it. They have it business emails only.
Yeah. And the author mixes up, like it isn't clear if it's VMT related to fatal crashes or total crashes. So I feel like there's some detail that was lost in this summary, because I think you're right. I mean, maybe VMT is related to total crashes, but when we're talking about the severity of the crash, some of these other variables are I would think are maybe more important than VMT. What are the speeds and the speed differentials? What is the mix of traffic on the streets? Again, and going back to that separation of users and time and space, these are the things that we want to see, and why, say programs like in San Francisco, the automated speed enforcement and the red light camera enforcement, automated, have shown some success because those are important factors to certainly the severity of crash.
Yeah, and they also look like they weighted. They even pre-weighted some of these things, right? So like it looked like they weighted VMT heavier to start with as well, when they were doing their calculations and stuff, because they had done that for some reason. I was trying to read through and figure it out, but I wasn't going to be able to read the whole report, unfortunately, before. Yeah, so I just think it's. I mean, I just think it's good to talk about how more driving engenders more risk and means that you're more likely to have a collision or a traffic death, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're inducing people to drive across the city to a grocery store, right, that they have to, we're creating more risk for them in order to allow them to go about their daily lives. And so I think that's, from that perspective, I think it's really important to think about how much we're forcing people to drive and putting them at risk for collisions, for possible traffic deaths, for traffic safety situations, and making them drive. They're putting other people at risk who may be crossing the street, who may be interacting in their path, whatever it may be. But there's all these possible collision points where we're creating them because we're creating the built environment that we've created.
Yeah, because ideally we want. It's kind of sounds a little weird. We want to increase the exposure, right? We want more, like you were saying, we want more people walking. We would love to see more people walking, more people biking, and not as many, and see that increase in proportion to the vehicle miles traveled. But that is increasing the exposure of vulnerable road users to potential crashes. But then there's a factor of awareness, hopefully, and exposure there. So in areas where we don't have a lot of pedestrian or bicycle travel, certainly vehicle awareness of those modes of travel may also not be as high, and could one argue that also can increase the risk.
It also is interesting that I found the density of a place too was kind of connected, and there's a lot of there's obviously still VMT that happens in a San Francisco or New York City, but the speeds are lower, and so that speed differential part is a part of it. We talk with David Ederer and Kerry Watkins about this, which is like the safe systems pyramid, and creating a system that you reduce the kinetic energy that's possible, right? So you slow people down. Right. And so the crashes, you might still have a number of crashes, but they might be low speed, and so it might not be as deadly. And so there's that part of it too, is like connecting it to the built environment in that way.
Yeah. And then they did say, they look at the speed differential, how speeds vary between vehicles on the same road, and then just the pure speeding through a neighborhood. And again, like if we can implement measures to bring those down in any environment, then it would be interesting to see how that would offset with their ranked highest VMT measure.
Yeah, that's also vehicle size, because even in dense city, I mean, you still see huge SUVs, trucks. It's like Jeffrey, they may hit you at 25 miles an hour, but it's there's still like these huge vehicles.
Right. I mean, you don't want to get hit by a truck
or any vehicle. And it's just
that's the kinetic energy, the mass.
Yeah. So what can we do to incentivize? Well, I mean, vehicle size, and like the auto manufacturers are clearly want big trucks, and but are there levers with other users? Like I just read DoorDash, their two-wheel, like basically mopeds, are growing faster than autos in some cities, not in all cities. So like how many more Door Dashes or whatever vehicle type it is can we get on two wheels or at least a small vehicle? If personal vehicle size is going to keep growing.
Hmm.
Yeah. There was an article recently about New York City. They're trying to increase the amount of smaller vehicles in Manhattan. And so what they're going to do is have people do the blue highway thing where they drop everything off in
Yeah, that's
Brooklyn
cool.
at the port, put it across the river, and then as it gets to the other side, then they distribute with the smaller vehicles.
They're doing the
versus
micro
larger
hubs
ones.
too.
Kinda,
It's like Blue Highway and
yeah.
micro hubs combination. They already started a couple pilots. So the trucks just deliver to the hub, and then the small vehicles, whatever it is, take it to the last mile.
Yeah.
We were in Switzerland in September, and we
Nice.
went to the Swiss Transport Museum. We did the Olympic Museum and the Swiss Transport Museum. So Greg and I both had our things, and it was great. They had some prototypes or just not even prototypes. I mean, in the real e-cargo delivery vehicles that were on display there.
Oh yeah, they're like all over.
I know. It's great. Yeah.
I just checked off a bucket list item, and I rode the Bernina Xpress last year. Bernina, yeah. The one that goes through. Like,
yes. Yeah. I wish I had time for that.
Oh yeah, nice. But yeah. I digress. Anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. No, I was in China last September, October, and but to your point, Tracy, about museums, they had their the Beijing Planning Museum is right next to the Beijing train or the National Train Museum, so they're like right next to each other, and so I highly recommend if anybody goes to check these things out because it's like amazing. They have a whole the whole floor of a building is like 1/8 scale size map of the city of Beijing. And
cool.
So basically it's a whole floor of a building is like this map of the city. And they actually, the buildings, when they build a new building, they'll put a new one in. So it changes.
Chicago has one of those at the Architecture Foundation. They have 3D map. It's like, it's pretty big. Like, and they do the same thing. They add.
It's pretty big. Yeah. We should have one for every city. I feel like they all need like a planning museum or something along those lines. It feels like that'd be really cool to have like a city of San Francisco or city of Seattle or Los Angeles or Austin or wherever, and all the buildings.
Great history.
I guess it takes some upkeep, but yeah, history would be good. All right, should we go to the next one? Speaking of Austin housing push lowers rents. New research from the Pew Charitable Trust found that Austin's ability to build more housing than other cities in the United States has led to lowered rents across the region. The city has recently added 120,000 units, more than 3 times the average rate of growth in the United States. This was by Liz Clifford and Seva Rodnyansky and Dennis Su in Pew Research. So they added 120,000 new homes from 2015 to 2024, and the increase of 30%, while the rest of the United States was 9%, and the rents fell. Austin's median rent was $1,546 in 2021, and now it's $1,353, or $1,296 actually. So 4% lower than the U.S. So it was higher than the U.S. average, and now it's lower than the U.S. average from all this housing growth, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Tracy,
it certainly has changed, Jeff. When you, how often have you been back over the years?
I've been back a few times. I was back in 2020, like the January of 2020. I was there for New Year's. So I'd been there, and then I've been back for a couple of times. After I graduated, I went to South by Southwest for like 5 years in a row. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I'll say like it's way different from when I rented my studio for $450 a month.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was an article in the Statesman just last week, I believe, on the lack of affordable housing in Austin. Mm-hmm. So this was an interesting contrast. I mean, and again, it's great that it has fallen, but there's still opportunity for improvement for sure. I also thought it was interesting that they didn't discuss, didn't talk at all about the impact of the short-term rental growth.
Yeah.
And what that just has done in terms of availability of units as well as the affordability. And because that's that's certainly the tension in so many places now, including Austin.
Especially a place like Austin, where you
Yes.
have like the South by Southwest, and you have Austin to the Limits Festival, and there's like a lot of opportunities for people to buy a house and then have a couple of big events where people can come. Texas
Yeah.
Relays, I'm sure,
Yeah.
for some of that. There's just like a bunch of events, game day for Texas football, like
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Like, just I feel like you could buy a house in a place like that where there's just so many events that. And then you could probably make money if you have a high end one that you rent to a couple times a year or something like that, and it takes it off
Is
the
that
market.
the vacancy rate in Austin is 10%? It's like the top 5 metros in the US. That must, I'm sure that's playing right into the short-term rental.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably so. I imagine so. Do they? I mean, I don't remember. This is for the whole Austin or the region? I think it's the region. But even if not, like, there's also that discussion of like because rents in Austin, Houston, other Texas metros are getting higher, even though they've been building a lot of units. And so, like, what does it mean to have that growth? But then we're seeing this all over the United States, like at least in high growth areas where it's growing a lot, but the rents aren't necessarily suitable. I mean, 1346 or 1353 or whatever it is, like 1296, $1,300 is still a lot for a housing unit for a rental.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
we moved during the pandemic. We moved back to Arizona in June of 2020, and I was shocked at the explosion in the cost of housing in the Phoenix metro market, because it had probably been undervalued for quite some time, but just over the past 6 years, it's just creeped up more and more and more to become one of the more expensive markets to live in.
Yeah.
And it's, again, demand, a lot of increased demand there, but I think also constraints on development, certainly in the urban core.
One thing I thought that was interesting is they reported how the largest decrease was most pronounced in the Class C buildings. So those buildings, which are like the non-luxury, because we always hear about, we need more affordable housing, and I think we just need more housing in general, because we know it'll bring down the cost of all housing. So Class C buildings saw their decreased 11.4,
11%.
yeah, and then Class A buildings, which were the high-end buildings, fell only 2.6%. And then the median rent for one bedroom unit was net affordable to a single person earning 95% of the area median income in 2017, but that declined to 84%. So, even though they are building, I mean, I'm sure a lot of what they're building now in Austin is on the high end. It's just it's driving down the price of more affordable buildings. And it reduces rents at all these levels. So, yeah, I mean, we don't need to, Peskin. Who's our other favorite supervisor that's no longer a supervisor? From North Beach. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot his name. He haunted my dreams.
I tried to get rid of him in my head.
Dean Preston, and
I was thinking a lot about San Francisco as I was reading this article.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need affordable housing, but it just goes to show it's like, yeah.
I mean, that proves the filtering point that the EMBs try to make, right? Basically, like the filtering goes down to those lower units. And I remember when I was in college in Austin, we always were looking for units that were they were like these old 70s buildings with they were kind of like dingbats. They had the parking underneath, and it might have been an old motel or something like that. And those are the ones that were like the 650, 700 for a 2-bedroom at the time, which is crazy to think about now. But in my place, was the last place I lived, I think I said 450. It was actually 550, but it was also a brand new, they had just renovated it, and it was brand new everything. So that was pretty fancy for me. I was I was kind of spending a little bit outside of my range for 550 a month for a single bedroom. But But yeah, those were the buildings that we looked for, is those cheaper buildings, and those were the ones that always had the deals for cheaper over time. And then I guess with West Campus growing, like they mentioned this in the article too, is like there's a number of stuff that happened. There was the mixed use ordinance. There's the West Campus construction boom, which basically, and I thought about this a long time ago, which is like, a lot of folks used to go to university. They lived on East Riverside, on the other side of the river, and they'd take the bus, the University of Texas bus, which is run by Cat Metro. But then a lot of folks, because they allowed so much density in West Campus, and they went from like bungalows and like 1-story buildings and frat houses to like these 20-story buildings, 15, 20-story buildings where a lot of students can live. Like the demand for like East Riverside dried up, but also like I was thinking about how much VMT that reduced, because all the students would also drive over the bridge to go to school. So now they were walking from West Campus instead of driving from East Riverside. So there must have been appreciable like traffic consideration. I mean, it probably, induced demand and all that probably filled up real quick, but it's also, something to think about when people are thinking about whether they want to densify in their core, especially around universities where students would love to walk to school.
There was also a change in development along East Riverside, though, right? With the development of the Oracle campus there, and some more professional employment, and then housing, and maybe a change in the housing that was there to serve that type of clientele.
Yeah, because it was always all those old like misaligned buildings, just housing where the developer, they built they had like a square property, and then they built all these buildings with the parking outside of like in different angles and stuff, and you're like, why is this shaped like this? Like,
was it? That's when they had parking minimums. Do they have to fit the parking?
Probably so.
Yeah.
They probably had to. Yeah, they probably had to. So like you'd have these buildings, and you have a sea of parking around each building. Instead of making them more like a urban environment, or at least walkable within the building, or putting the parking on the outside, there was just like every building was like its own little island, and then there was parking all over it, and it was really hard to walk places. I went to go visit friends for parties and stuff over there. I usually had to drive, so designated driver.
Yep, now they have the Wishbone Bridge off of.
I know, that's cool too. Like I remember having to run over the little tiny bridge, because we used to do the Town Lake Loop. So there's a new bridge over the Longhorn Dam, next to the Longhorn Dam. Yeah. So Town Lake is created by this dam, just east of downtown, and there used to be and it also used to be by the old Austin Energy plant. So there was like a cooling thing or like a water outtake from the plant. So you were running by the plant, and then there's this little outcropping, and then you had this little rainbow bridge, or like little like arch bridge that you ran over the top, and it was kind of cute. It was like fun, but then you had to run over the dam, and then like the cars were almost hitting you. But now they have this beautiful bridge that's like a 3-prong bridge that goes one side to one side and then all the way to the other side. I highly recommend people check it out. And I'm sure there's drone shots out there of it now. It's really pretty.
Yeah, I think it just opened 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think.
And they've done a lot of stuff. They like built, the trail, the path onto the, instead of through the neighborhood, like next to the river and stuff like that. The whole Town Lake Trail's really been developed over the last 20 years. Yeah.
To try to distribute some of the use across a broader area.
Yeah. Because people usually only went from like Congress Avenue to 183, right? They were, or not 183, Mopac. Yeah. They were always going that direct. That little section was always, even though there's a whole 10-mile loop, they're only using that little tiny section, which makes sense. It was a pretty section, and the wildflowers grow in the spring. I bet you it's really pretty right now, actually. Yeah. I saw all my friends from high school are posting their bluebonnet pictures.
The last thing I want to say about this article was I did appreciate that it also pointed out while, there still is a lot of single family development, there is a good distribution of the type of housing that's being built, and not only in the city of Austin, but it did refer to some of the outlying suburbs as well. So I think that, again, like we were talking about, not only that also increases the housing production, the number of units that have hit the market.
Yeah, it's changing the composition of the city. Yeah.
All right, next up, congestion pricing report released. A congestion road pricing report was completed in 2021 and was kept on Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's desk until a FOIA request and subsequent lawsuit compelled its release. The report is older and likely out of date given current conditions, but the findings, in addition to New York City's success, suggest that pricing could work in D.C. as well. This was by Chelsea Allinger, Alex Baca, and Caitlin Roger in Greater Washington. So I saw like all the social media about it being released, and the next day I read this piece. They were like, "Yeah, we sued and we tried to get this out," and I had no idea about the history of this. And apparently, they'd been trying to get it released for a long time after
It's wild.
the Greater Washington folks had helped put it together, I guess. So, crazy that she just sat on it for 5 years, and it didn't go anywhere. Even though there were a couple of instances where she should have been compelled to release it, it didn't happen. So I'm wondering what you think about this. Like, I think that for me specifically, I think the most interesting part of this isn't necessarily the pricing part, but just like that the mayor couldn't be compelled to release this after a lawsuit, after like council had said, like, we're not going to redistribute funds unless you release this. And then they just forgot about it, or they just like let it go. Like, it kind of is frustrating from like a larger standpoint of like things that like should be done or rules that should be followed that just aren't followed these days. People are just like picking and choosing what they want to like allow and not allow. And I find that more frustrating than like the report itself. Like, it's outdated. We know how pricing works with New York City now, but like the anti-rule following thing is I think the thing that bothers me.
Yeah, I don't get it because she commissioned the study, Mayor Bowser. And I get like it's political. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to do it, but she's also, her term's up. It seems like the two leading candidates to take over as mayor are both in support. I don't get the opposition to releasing it. Like, is it that she just didn't want to stir up anything? And I mean, is there a secret mission to have road pricing and she doesn't want to stir up a conversation too soon? I mean, is that, it's baffling to me.
I feel bad because I should have read this earlier in the day to then ask
Yeah.
our DC office team, which, and it's great that it's outdated because Nelson Agar did the report and we'd love to do it again if needed. But no. But I should have asked. Obviously, there's got to be, there must be politics involved in this in terms of, and certainly DC politics over the past year have gotten more complex and frustrating because even like, again, things that we've done, for bicycle, protected bicycle lanes to be discussed about being removed now. So I think the whole city is tense with politics, but that doesn't excuse it doesn't answer the question of the 5 years that it wasn't released since it's been in their possession.
How much of this is, and I see this thread in other cities around the United States with Mayor Adams before Mamdani, even now a little bit of like, you see the rumblings from like people who are frustrated with Mayor Wu in Boston, with what Karen Bass did last week, trying to like push back on the K-line plans that would go through West Hollywood. I wonder how much of it is like the politics of it are so, the NIMBYs of it all are so loud about this specific thing, the bike lanes, the transit expansion, in Los Angeles, it was the it's going to be 10 stories down, but there's going to be tunneling under people's houses. And that's always been a frustration in LA for certain folks. I'm wondering how much of it is just like somebody gets in their ear and is just like, don't do this, or I'm going to make your life a living hell. And so it's like 5 people, right? Or 5 people. Like, I have a pen in my hand. 5 people, 4 fingers, 5 people, 5 people that are like in somebody's ear. Like, we're going to just like, make it worse for you if you do this. And so I feel that feels like more what it was, like the kind of a hostage situation more than anything.
Oh yeah,
or a powerful lobby.
I was gonna say a donor. Like, yeah.
I mean, we don't know what um, you know, certainly in the case of New York City was the commercial, goods movement lobby not a fan of this. I mean, I think you have to think about, who are the
Parking
people,
operators.
yeah, who is in opposition and what power do they have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's you mentioned Chrissy, the a donor. I think that's what is stopping like one of the redesign. I think it's Alameda corridor in Denver right now. Is there's like a powerful donor that's like, no, I don't want this, and I can't remember who it is now, but you would know them. They're a famous person generally, or their family's famous, and so those types of things. Even here in San Francisco, I mean, when the DeYoung Museum folks,
Yeah.
right, were against JFK Drive, like it's like that one or two, the lobby is yeah. I don't know. I think that's just the frustrating part about this to me, not necessarily like pricing.
Yeah.
We kind of see what's going on. It's an old report.
But it's also like I think it is who's in their ear. Like we see this with, I just got parking passed in Bellevue, Washington. So council approved it unanimously after all but part of that is because of all the outreach we did. And so there were at the last minute, there was like, who are they going to talk to last? And how do we make sure we go and visit, like go to that business, like figure out when we can meet with them, and I walked to the study area like 3 times and went to every business. It's just like, what can you do to meet with people to help them not make those calls? I mean, that's basically our jobs. Essentially.
Yeah.
Because it like just before, I mean, I've had this happen like right before a council meeting, someone calls and then you're like, oh God, like I had these votes and now, that just killed it.
Or I thought we had answered these questions already, and they're, you just have to be prepared for them coming back up again. And yeah.
When you walk into one of those businesses, Chrissy, like what do you expect from the folks, or are you ever pleasantly surprised, or you get some fierce pushback? Like what's the conversation like generally?
Recently I had someone say, you want to come and talk to me about parking pricing? And he was opening a letter and he just put the envelope opener, like held it up. And my colleague and I were like, okay, we're going to back away. It was like, for real.
Almost.
But most of the time it's like, they want to know how where their staff is going to park. And so it's getting all that information ahead of time. Like we kind of know what their arguments are going to be. So what is our plan for addressing them? So, we can figure out who does need to drive if they don't have the luxury, like we were talking about earlier, of taking transit to work and they're getting out at midnight, and how do we help them know that they need to drive, or can we do these other things? But yeah, I mean, for that particular Bellevue study, I mean, we just walked, there's probably, it was 4 big study areas, and I just walked business to business, and I talked to employees. I heard that, well, people that were driving, it was like people making minimum wage and getting 2 tickets a week from 2 parking citations a week. So how can we now have that data point to say, well, people are already paying through parking citations, and that's worse. If we could just issue them a permit, or they're paying a daily rate, that's cheaper for them. Or like customers aren't going to come, that's the biggest one. And we talk about, well, of course your customers that drive often walk in and start complaining right away. You're not going to hear from. So it's just kind of anticipating what they're going to say. I mean, it's always challenging, but the biggest thing is, who are your champions? So if you can get a few champions to come out and testify, or like have someone on council that really can make the case, then that's how it gets passed. But yeah, I mean, I don't think if we hadn't done all that outreach, I mean, we did like 100 meetings, just table. If we hadn't done that, I don't know if it would have we changed the mayor's mind in the council meeting, because we had champions there, like that testified, even champions on the council. But yeah. there's always the chance that the last person that calls gets in their ear.
Gets in their ear.
Yeah.
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 Brain crossings. A new study found that people who navigate their cities on foot and cross intersections create more brain connections and had larger hippocampal trails. The more complex task of navigation seems to help brains ward off cognitive ailments like dementia and Alzheimer's. This was by Elizabeth Tarika in Medical Xpress. There was a report out. So I was interested in this study specifically because this says that if you're navigating a city, you are likely to and make those brain connections that might ward off Alzheimer's and dementia. But then also you're in the city and breathing in the exhaust from all those intersections. So maybe it makes it worse. They didn't mention that, but that's what came to my mind. Yeah. When I was reading it, I was like, that's been, the research has come out lately that, particulates and PM 2.5 and a number of other emissions are part of the problem with dementia and Alzheimer's and other brain ailments. So, is it like, how much of it is like, going up and down, but I'm curious what your thoughts are of like, the connections that people make or navigating, maybe not driving, but walking around places actually helps them, their brains, stay healthy.
I had a few thoughts related to this article. One, and Jeff, you are a geography major, so reading maps. I love reading maps. Like I always just loved reading maps and riding in the car. Sorry, but and reading a map. And we don't do that anymore. Like I'm thinking about, my son Angus. He's 18. Like physically holding a map and reading it, it's not done. And that is, that challenges your brain. Now you just put in an address and you listen to where it tells you to turn. That does not challenge your brain in the same way. And so I thought a bit about that, and then, again, these different complex exercises that we do, because that's part of what they say to do as we age, to add that complexity, or don't lose that complexity. But I also thought about my dad and stepmom who lived in Manhattan forever. My stepmother is, born and raised New Yorker. And during the pandemic, they had started doing kind of the snowbird thing down to Florida, and they would be down there for like 3 months of the year. And during the pandemic, that's where they were, because it was over the wintertime in New York. And they really never went back to New York because they were aging and they lived in a 3-story walk up and life was just getting harder, they thought, up there. But my stepmother, and so they sold their place in New York, and she's just changing, I think. And I've seen some cognitive change, and I don't know if it's because of the lack of doing this activity, the daily routine of traversing the streets. So it's, maybe correlation rather than causation, but it was an interesting thing to think about. And it totally makes sense to me.
I wonder if my grandmother was 109 when she passed away, and I wonder if actually she was blind. She had macular degeneration, so she couldn't see for the longest time since in her 80s. She gave my sister her keys a long time before that even. And I also have to wonder, like, she couldn't see, but that also made her like listen to tons of audiobooks. Mm-hmm. She also was like paying attention to stuff. Like she was always thinking, always like,
picturing it. Yeah.
Yeah, she was mapping
things in her mind. Yeah, so she was kind of mapping stuff. So I'm wondering if like that helped her, because if you're just like able to just watch TV mindlessly, or if you're able to just like kind of zone out a little bit in some senses, I wonder if that's like part of the problem. And I do think this happens to folks who like end up living somewhere where they can't mm-hmm. go places. If they don't have something to keep themselves active, they might, go a little inward. And there's also a loneliness factor too. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's big campaigns I know in Europe, and at least in England, about, loneliness and getting folks out and about and meeting with people and those types of things. But I wonder if that's part of it too, is like, if you live in a city and you connect with people, or you like even going down the street, like here in Noe Valley, like I have made it a point to like meet like some of the shopkeepers and like say hi to them every day when I walk by and all this stuff. So like you have that constant interaction, or your constant like kind of negotiation with other people. And I feel like if I lost that, I feel like
Mhm.
my brain would turn to mush to a certain extent, just because of the lack of like connections. So one of the things about doing the podcast and the newsletter from home since 2014 is like, I'm here at home and I don't get that kind of interaction. So I have to go out and
Yeah.
make it a little bit more, because otherwise you're just like kind of in your own mind, in your own head. And then social media is not a substitute for individual, connection
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah,
So
when I was reading this article, I was thinking I work with transit agencies in rural areas. One of them is the Fresno Rural Transit Agency, so it covers, a huge area. Um, and I was recently riding their on-demand shuttle, just to like do observations, talk to riders,
Mhm.
and so many of the riders are seniors. They take the shuttle every day. They go to the senior center or they go to Walmart because those are the two big destinations.
Mhm.
And it's like if they didn't have that bus to pick them up to actually help them too. It's not like they're just walking down the corner and I mean, some of them could walk to the corner bus stop if it was at the corner, depending how far it was, and navigate the bus themselves. But the driver gets out and helps them get on the bus. But it's just if they didn't have that connection, then they're not leaving their house. They're not. And what I worry is in Fresno, Measure C there is the local sales tax that funds a lot of transit and helps the agency get its fare box recovery ratio and meet those requirements. And it's up for renewal, and there's like a big chance it won't pass. So if it doesn't,
does it need 66 or does it need 50?
yeah.
Okay.
And there's just all these competing, like there's a lot of reasons why it might not pass. And now there's like separate measures that are alternative measures that are going on the ballot, and that will confuse voters. And so it's just
Mhm.
like, we got to talk about what this is going to do to seniors and low income people, because this is not like a choice rider. And then what it's going to do, basically, like people now aren't going to be able to go to the senior center. And now we're going to have to pay for their healthcare. And if they're not
Yeah.
using their
Yeah.
brains and getting out and exercising and all these things. So it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, the transportation insecurity
Yeah.
of it all is really important.
Yeah. I was going to say this article also made me think about, and Jeff, I don't know if it was a piece that I mean, I'm sure over all the years you've been doing it, you had an article on the dementia village that's outside of Amsterdam and how it's set up to simulate, it's a dementia community, but it's set up to simulate a town, and the cognitive benefit of going through those activities of daily living and navigating that space. Yeah, and I
I'm
wish
sure
that
it's
there
really
were
helpful.
more like
I'm sure
places like
that's
that.
really
Yeah.
helpful. One of the things that was fascinating with that is like they have the bus stop outside, and so the people, they want to go somewhere, so they go and sit on the bus stop. But it's almost like not an alarm, but like a notification for like the staff there to come and pick them up and like bring them back. Because then like they'll sit there, but there's no bus coming, right? There's a bus stop, but there's no bus, and so it's kind of like a way for them to get
Yeah.
pulled them back into the community so they don't leave. But yeah, the urban design implications of that are fascinating, especially from when we're talking about what we're talking about here. And a couple of weeks ago, I mean, we were talking with folks about historic preservation and that whole industry, and the idea of like beauty and like what makes people interested in like walking. And there's another article last week that was about from the University of Colorado where they're talking about it's not just about the distance, from a walkable standpoint. It's actually like what you see and like how you interact. Like we know this, the fenestration of the
Yeah.
buildings and like the quality urban design, the street furniture, all that stuff. And like that's powerful too, is like how it stimulates your brain the same way maybe nature might if you're out in walking in the woods. The city could do the same thing. If it's boring to everybody, right? But if it's
Yeah.
stimulating, it's
Mhm.
stimulating, and it's stimulating your brain. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
There was and I think it was on 60 Minutes. There was this last night, was it last Sunday? The Dog Project, and they're studying Alzheimer's, memory loss in dogs, and like there's all these results of how it compares to people. And it was like the same exact if dogs are around other dogs, like they were looking at dogs' brains and dogs that had started to lose their cognitive abilities and
Mm.
like memory loss and things, and it was just exactly the same as humans. So they've studied like 50,000 dogs.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
Wow.
yeah,
It's
and it's like dogs that aren't exercising, that aren't going outside and aren't socializing with other dogs are seeing the same rates of dementia as humans that are in those same categories, doing
yeah.
doing the same thing.
Wow.
Social animals. Humans are social animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at
Mhm.
Punchy, a monkey. He's
Oh, I
like,
know.
all he wants is
All
a
he wants
hug.
is his stuffy, right? Like
I think now he's getting integrated, and people
getting
are, or
better.
the monkeys are like
The monkeys are
liking him,
nicer
but
to him now.
yeah, they're hugging him, and so they're talking to him.
Yeah. All right. Well, this week and every week, I want to thank our generous Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome and keep the show going by listening and supporting each month. This show and Talking Headways really wouldn't be here without it. So thank you very much. And you can support the show by going to patreon.com/theoverheadwire. $2 a month will get you some stickers and a handwritten note. $10 a month will get you a bus only scarf or bike only scarf, or maybe a different type of a cooling towel. I'll work on that. Or if you do $1 a month, you can get this podcast without outside advertising. Listener questions and comments. This is part of the show where we talk about something fun, interesting, or maybe, or actually, no, if you have a comment or question, feel free to tweet at us or comment on any of the social sites where the podcast appears, or feel free to email us at theoverheadwire.com. Puppies and Butterflies is part of the show where we talk about something fun, interesting, or maybe just didn't fit in the other sections. Do you all have a Puppies and Butterflies for this week?
I do, because I was looking at the Marina Safeway. It's like reading, and I learned that it's the Marina Safeway is a Marina style grocery store design. Maybe
A Marina style
know,
grocery store design?
yeah, it's called a Marina style. So, and when it was built in 1959, it was designed by Wurster, Bernardi, and Emmons, and it was the first time a grocery store wasn't just a block, and it had a curved roof with wings on the end.
Oh.
And I think they've just kept some of that. But anyway, that started. And then it was like, I was reading this article, but like even Dollar General, like all of these other stores have this wings.
I feel like I've
arch and
seen
wing
that.
style.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that.
Yeah, and it's
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started just Googling now random grocery stores, and they're all like this.
Is it like a 50s like kind of Art Deco-y or like kind of modernist kind of feature?
They went from it's like a curved roof with the curve, and then Safeway and blocks underneath, and like it kind of wings out after the curve. It's called Marina style architecture for groceries, like big box stores.
Okay, that's interesting. I love that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's like pretty.
I love that, especially.
So that will be used to keep the Marina.
That's what they're going to use to like.
That's going to hopefully not. Well, it's builder's remedy, so there's nothing they can do.
I don't know. I don't know. Somebody's going to try something.
Yeah, I'm working on a builder's remedy development right now.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to say what it is, but they're still coming out.
Sure. Do folks know what builder's remedy? Like, I feel like if you're outside of California, would you know what builder's remedy is? So basically, like, there's a law that was passed a long time ago, before any of this mess started, and it said like if you're out of compliance with your planning, what does it look like the
arena, like the
housing element, right?
The state,
I think it's the housing element. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you're out of compliance with your housing element, which nobody ever paid attention to whether people were out of compliance or not, so it never happened. And then Scott Wiener and some other folks passed a bunch of laws that said like, no, this does matter, and so you have to be, and then you have allocate population and stuff like that. And so now it's a big deal, because now like if you're out of compliance, you can developers can basically kind of build whatever they want. As long as it has like this, that, and the other thing, they can just do it if it follows like building code and stuff. So now there's like all these development, like it's like 30-story buildings in the Sunset and whatever else that people were like saying that they possibly could do if they subdivided a couple times, and it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, the Safeway got in because they were voting. They had approved family zoning, but they hadn't adopted it.
Yeah, so they
that's how they like went to the counter and submitted their permit right before it was adopted, like the day before. But hey, you don't want to build housing what is he supposed to do?
People didn't like the Transamerica building either, so we'll see what.
I
what
know.
happens.
Did you see the time capsule?
Yeah.
I didn't see the time capsule.
Oh, there's a museum in the Transamerica right now. They have an Eames exhibit,
Oh, I
and then they
saw
have the
that.
time
Yeah, I
capsule.
saw it. We were there a
Yeah.
little while ago. I love that redwood forest too. That's really cool.
Oh,
It's one of my favorite spots.
But the time capsule has all these articles that people sent to the Chronicle saying how terrible it's gonna like ruin the skyline,
No,
and
it's-
all
now
these
everybody
things.
thinks part of the
Yeah.
skyline. Yeah.
It's iconic.
All right, Tracy, what's your puppies and butterflies?
I don't have one because I forgot. I wish you had given me a
Aren't
reminder.
you the
It's been
inventor
so
of puppies and
long.
butterflies? Like, I think you were the one that suggested it be puppies and butterflies. The originator. No, I'm sorry. I don't need to
Like, we
feel
need something-
worse.
Yeah. Next time, because all right.
Well,
At one point, Jeff, maybe it was a few years ago, we said, okay, we need to get back on. I think I messaged you and said I need to get
Okay.
back on the schedule and have it be like once a month.
okay.
I'm on.
I mean, if you all want to, I mean, I'm doing them every other Monday. So if you all want to come on, let me know, and we'll put you on the schedule, and I'll make sure to send you the articles ahead of time and do it.
And
Yeah,
remind me.
remind you.
Remind about
Yeah, and I'll
puppies and
remind you about the
butterflies.
puppies and butterflies. Well, so my puppies and butterflies is, and I was telling you, I started to tell the story, but I remembered that I had put it in my puppies and butterflies when I was put in my notes. But I actually was out on Friday afternoon collecting signatures for the ballot measure that we might have if we can collect 200,000 signatures to save BART, Muni, AC Transit, etc. in the region.
Mhm.
So I had never thought about doing anything like that before in my life. And so thank you, Cara Lavin and Liz Brisson, for the impetus. And so I went on Thursday to go pick up some supplies, including signature stuff. And I went to Town Square in Noe Valley, and I was just staying there. And I wore my SF City FC jersey with the Muni logo on it. And so as people would walk by, I would just say, support for Muni, and I just point to my shirt. And it seemed to work. It seemed to work okay.
Ah.
But yeah, we got a couple signatures, so I'll be out a little bit more this week and maybe in the next oncoming months to try to get those 200,000 signatures. But that was my puppies and butterflies. I think that was
Nice.
I haven't really been that involved with local stuff, and so I figured maybe I should do it.
Do your civic
Yeah.
duty.
So get those
Yeah.
signatures to
Good
get that on
Good
the
job.
ballot. So that was what I've been up to. And if you want to support the campaign by donating or volunteering or anything else, check out connectbayarea.com. So where can folks find you all if you wish to be found? Tracy first, and then we'll go with Chrissy.
You can find me on LinkedIn. That is the only place I am nowadays.
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn too, and at mycuriouscity.com.
Awesome. And you can find me on Blue Sky, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, sometimes Threads, Substack, YouTube, and of course at my website and in your inbox every morning if you sign up for the Overhead Wire Daily Flickr. You can find me by typing in Transit Nerds. Everything else is at the Overhead Wire. Thanks for joining us at Mondays at the Overhead Wire, and thanks to our generous patrons for sponsoring this week's podcast. Thank you, Chrissy and Tracy, for coming on the
Jeff.
show. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
spending time with us
Yeah.
and reading up the material. I know it's a lot of work, but I appreciate it.
We learn a lot.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
Talking